you want to learn more about effective management, head over to maddsingers.com and sign up for my free management training.
Welcome to the Mad Singers Management Podcast from madsingers.com, where entrepreneurs and business managers learn and share. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a review.
Hello, and welcome back to this next episode of the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Alex Suyev. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for inviting me into your podcast. I hope I can share something interesting with your audience.
For sure. I hope I didn't butcher your last name too much.
That's all right.
Right, Alex, some people around the world don't know who you are yet. That's all about to change. So would you mind giving a quick introduction to people of who you are?
Sure. I can say I'm an IT geek, IT nerd. I can say like that. I used to study IT in university probably 15 years ago. And after that, working in IT companies, that we developed a payment system similar like PayPal for the whole country, overall Russia. And after a couple years working in the company, I became a CTO of another company doing similar stuff. And my first website probably I developed in 2001 during some programming course at school. And it was pure HTML, CSS, but I really liked it. And after university, maybe in 2012, working in the company, I was bored and I decided to open my own business. And because I didn't have much money and I thought, but I knew how to do a website. I thought it will be the fastest and the easiest way to do business and to get more clients. So I found out about SEO and I started doing SEO for my website for my own. And after maybe a year, I got pretty good results. And my phone was ringing all time, the whole day. And I probably my profit from the company was similar, even higher than the company where I was as CTO. It was pretty interesting period of my life, working 14 hours per day doing powerlifting. I even took a part in the competition and got a second place in bench press. It was pretty fun time. And I met my future wife who was also a business owner and also worked for 14 hours. And I would say it was pretty difficult. And we never traveled before. We decided that it's probably enough. And we moved to China. 3 years I was working for Alibaba in China, a pretty big company. And I was doing digital marketing mostly. I worked in marketing team, mostly with Russians and Ukrainians, and we do promotion for one of their products called UC Browser, number one browser in China and India, and quite big in audience they have in Russia now. After China, in China we started our own YouTube channel and our website about learning languages, and because my wife, she is an English teacher and she used to have English school in Russia, so that's a website. That's how I mostly learned SEO by myself. I sold my previous company in Russia, so I stopped doing SEO for that one, but I started a new website and I sold it after a couple of years for pretty good money. And maybe in 2015, we got 100,000 visitors per month, plus around 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. It was pretty interesting, and maybe more than 70 writers were working on the website. Those days, I tried to learn how to manage big teams, how to manage a lot of people at the same time, providing the best results and building processes and our own system.
Nice.
Well, those days I understood that communications probably is the key, and you need to learn people's psychology. You need to learn their culture, how they make a decision, why they make those decisions, and you need to know that to predict their behavior, their actions in the future. And well, sorry, Matt.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes good sense.
Yeah, well, after China, we decided to move to the Philippines for just to take a rest, and for probably 6 months working there. As you know, like all these pictures about the ideal life with a laptop laying on the beach and in the hammock. And well, it was so boring, I would say. And so we just got bored, and we decided to change something in our lives, and we moved to New York, to USA. Nice. For 6 months working in New York. I worked for a US company, mostly doing SEO, and we started developing Conveysys. It's a plugin for WordPress providing translation services. So I was doing SEO fixes, working on PBN networks, managing small team in that company. Yep. And yeah, after US, we moved to Vietnam, where we live now. And at the same time, I was doing affiliate marketing for another website. And it was one of the probably interesting part of SEO. And I decided to join one Russian company that's had a couple big websites, affiliate websites about different reviews. They did affiliate marketing, and the traffic was probably around 1 million visitors per month each. So as a team lead, I had a team working on those sites, doing link building, content, technical optimization, PBN, building PBN network, and a lot of different stuff. And the main problem was, again, the communication, because working with a remote team, I didn't have close relationships with my colleagues. And for me, it's really important to talk with people. And I didn't even see them face to face. I mean, I don't know how they look. We had video conversation every day, but we didn't use video, and it's not so exciting working remotely as working in the office. That's why I decided to quit, and I joined Ardor, where I work now. And we have all this stuff. We talk to each member every day and have a team call every week. And yeah, that's pretty it.
That sounds good. And yeah, so you're managing how many people at Ardor?
In Ardor, in my team, we have 15 people now, but I also involved in different processes for different departments. Sometimes I have to help a link building outreach team. Sometimes I work with the content team. So in total, in Ardor, we have 40 people.
Nice. So Alex, let's get into some tips and tricks. So what's the number one thing that makes you a good manager? If you maybe I should ask if you are a good manager first, but I assume you are.
I hope so. I hope other team members can say about that, but I'm trying to not to talk directly. I mean, I'm trying to be as much as possible. Yep. Every day. Number one thing for me, I think, well, a lot of things I can talk about, but maybe number one is empathy and, well, communications. Well, as you know, if you confuse, you lose. And to explain what you want to achieve and to show other team members your goals and your vision, company vision, you have to be, you have to understand the psychology, and you have to understand people's culture, maybe why they do those decisions, why they make them, and how they will behave in the future. How will they react on your implementations, on new things that you try to implement in the company?
That makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned communication quite a few times. So what's been your biggest learning points around communication?
Well, I can say that in different countries where I lived, there are different people. They communicate pretty different way. And for example, in Russia, in China, and now I lived in Vietnam, so I work with Vietnamese as well, and a lot of different people. I can say that the completely different style of Western style of Western communication compared with Russian way of communicating and Chinese. For example, in China, there is a big distance between a boss and their employee, and a boss try to implement, they don't want to lose their face, right? So they implement things. Sometimes they don't listen their own their colleagues, and in Western it's more like friends, more like a partnership, and in Russia it's something in between. So I try to follow all these styles if I think I need to. For example, it's you know how to work with the Philippines. You work with them for a long time, right? So for example, on the Philippines, they better work under pressure, as from my side point of view. And if you tell them your vision and company goals, sometimes, most of the time, they maybe they don't follow your ideas. But if you tell them their KPIs, they can do it better. But for Europeans, for Western people, you mostly try to give them more responsibilities, show them opportunities, involve them to the company life, and try to help them to being a part of the company. So that's what I see. So I'm trying to working with the different people. We have people from UK, US, Vietnam, Italy, Hungary, I don't know, Nepal, India, a lot of countries. So working with the different people, I have to find different solutions or different approaches for everyone. So
that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think, I mean, it's always difficult, right? When you're like new cultures, it's never the same. So in theory, I say that everyone around the world communicates the same, but there's definitely always cultural differences, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever way you twist and turn it, that's just the way it is, right? But I think fundamentally, there's always a lot of things you can do, right, to make a big difference, right? And there's a lot of things that are the same in most places, right? And I think, I mean, one of the things that I look the most at is really, in terms of personality and understanding people's sort of personality sets and so on, and really understand, are they assertive, are they reserved, what are they, and basically utilize that to try and figure out, like, what are they good at, what are they not so good at. And
one of our tests, and if you want to join Ardor, will be a personality test. So we would like to know what kind of personality you have if you want to be a manager, if you're proactive, or you prefer to follow someone. That's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's interesting. And what about from sort of a higher level perspective, right? I mean, you obviously been working in quite a few different teams. How do you feel like being in a small company that you're in now? How do you feel that's different than, for example, being in a larger corporation with, like lots of staff and lots of processes and so on? Like, do you feel a difference?
Of course. Well, that's probably the the main thing that I always tell others, like I always compare the big companies. In Alibaba, I don't remember exactly how many people there, probably more than 10,000 people. But in the company that I worked for, UC Web, it was 3,000 people in that company, which pretty big. I mean, even for Russian companies, for Western companies, it's a lot of people. And working with the small companies, from probably the smallest company I work with, it was three people, including me. So we grew from 3 people, we grew to 16 in a year. And compare those companies, I can say that, well, first of all, in a big company, it's much more difficult to implement your ideas. The main, one of the big issues for me in Alibaba, for example, was when we had a problem with product. We would like to work closer to developers to explain them what the problem is, and we couldn't get access we tried to get access to Mantis backtracking system to explain those issues directly, and it took 3 months for me to get those access. But after that, we increased our speed maybe twice, maybe 3 times. We started working faster because you communicate less. You have less chains of communications, so the whole work will be faster. And a lot of processes, sometimes it's good to have all these processes, because you at the same time, in big companies which have all these processes, it's easier to work, because especially for interns, for young specialists, for people who just joined the company, they want to learn something, they have much better education system, because all these processes are already written, and you can start learning, you can start doing simple stuff, and you can learn a lot of things in a short period of time. But in a small company, you have to figure out by yourself what's going on. Well, we try to avoid that as much as possible. We wrote a lot of SOPs for the last year. We try to automate as much as possible. But at the same time, I understand that in the bigger company, you have much more resources to teach people than in small companies. But what I like the most is you always be a valuable part of the team, of the company, and your ideas, it's easier to implement them. So when I joined Ardor, I had so many ideas. So we start implementing them immediately. And I hope that it's brought pretty good results. We automate a lot of processes. We implement a lot of scripts, and Google Data Studio finally help. Sorry. So I think that's the biggest advantage of the small company. But maybe in big companies, it's maybe more comfortable to work, because you already have the whole environment. And for example, in Alibaba, they provide everything. They provide the apartment, they provide food, they provide a lot of materials, and it's more comfortable and less stressful. But there was less challenges. So for people who wants challenges, it's probably they will not like it. For example, like me. That's the main thing, because why I prefer to work with small companies, because there will be always challenges more than in a big company.
Totally. And that's, I've worked in very large companies like IBM and Xerox and so on, and yeah, it's totally the same, right? I mean, you can always find challenges, and there's always stuff to do.
Yeah,
and that's at least for some people that makes it very interesting, at least, right? So.
But if you work in a different country, for example, in China. Just imagine Chinese people, they don't like foreigners to be on the manager's positions. So how, like in IBM, for example, you could find challenges and you can become a manager, you can implement your own processes. But in China, it's possible, but it's much more difficult because they prefer to have Chinese people on the management positions, and and the manager will be always trying to implement his ideas without listening to you.
Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge you have ever faced from a management standpoint?
Difficult to say, because like it feels like when you change the culture completely from Russian style of management to Chinese and then to Western, everything you do is a challenge, is a big challenge. For China, in China, it was difficult for me to get used to. It was difficult for me to use my energy to implement. It was to communicate with the managers who don't like implementations, who don't like changes, and that was maybe the culture difficulty. In Ardor or in Western companies, the biggest challenges probably in terms of management, it was to find time for everyone so they feel. Well, we all know we all have a lot of work, and we, especially business owners and managers, and for me, I feel very important to find time for every person in the company that work with us to feel a valuable part of the team, so they can understand our vision and our priorities, and then follow send their direction to send their energy to the right direction. And probably that's all. Everything else, it's I feel really excited, and it's a lot of interesting things happening. So you always learn something new. You always try to be better, and working with the team, they help you to grow as much as you help them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, that's good. I mean, it's always difficult, right? And I always have this idea, like, today's challenge always seems bigger than yesterday's challenge, but it's also a lot of the time it's also just how you look at it, right? Because from a high level perspective, things are like how big challenges you deal with. Every time you deal with a big challenge, what tend to happen is that you become more comfortable in general with challenges, right? And that can both be good and bad, but in many scenarios that's a good thing, right? Because it makes you able to comprehend more, and make you able to do more things, and that's
right.
Yeah, it's good, right? I mean, I really love challenges, and just like yourself, right? Like when things are too easy, that's never ever a good sign, right?
Yeah, you probably watched movies, Yes, with Jim Carrey, like Always Say Yes.
Yeah,
I really like this movie, so I like most of the time I try to say yes first, and then figure out all these challenges and difficulties later.
that makes a lot of sense, yeah. So, from your perspective, in terms of like recruitment and really finding the right people is at least in most cases is the most difficult aspect, right? So, what sort of tips and tricks have you learned around recruitment that enables you to find great people on a consistent basis?
Since I involved a lot in the recruitment, and I always had to do that, probably my first interview I did more than 10 years ago. And well, it's always difficult to find the right people. I mean, you think the person is perfect fit for you, but in the end, it can be different. But at the same time, we developed pretty nice system, and thanks to our HR and recruiter, that helped us a lot. We do a lot of tests. We personality test, of course, SEO test if that's SEO specialist applying for a job. And well, I try to understand not just person experience and knowledges, but at the same time, I'm trying to understand what drives him to work harder, what push him to grow, what kind of his main values in his life. If that's family, or if that's money, or maybe he likes challenges and that's why he's trying to join our company. And if you understand these values, you know what to offer this person. Sometimes it's not about money at all. You just you give him more challenges, and he will be happy to work with you forever. And if that's a person like that, and so because I think psychology is really important in management, so I'm trying to talk. Not just, well, we have tests to check all these knowledges, SEO experience and everything else. But talking to the person and trying to know him better, to understand if he will be the perfect fit for our company, to our culture, and make it better.
Yeah.
But we all do mistakes, so sometimes it's not successful, but we do better and better.
Yeah, that makes sense, Alex. That makes sense. Now, a lot of SEOs really, really struggle with delegation. What have been your learning points around delegation, and what's sort of the key things that you feel that you're doing particularly well?
Well, as a IT specialist, as a IT nerd, I think that people always can do, well, people do mistakes, and the best way to delegate is to automate the thing. If you can automate this process, this will be the best way to delegate it. So you don't need to worry about the final result. You don't need to worry about the time person spent on that task. You will check, you will just get the final result, what you need. But talking about delegation, I think, well, first of all, you always have people who you can delegate on something or you can't. And if you can trust them to be responsible and independent. In other words, like people who should be checked, and you should set up some KPIs and checking points for them, or people who you just can tell the idea and they will do it by the end. So most of the time, for delegation we always have SOP, right? So person who joined the company, they know what to do. So we write this SOP and review them from time to time. And if the person does the task for the first time, he will write SOP by himself, and we will check after that. So SOP helps a lot to improve this process. Another thing is to set up KPIs and checking points. So if you know, and you and the person know what to achieve in the end and where we all going, then it will be much better to achieve this point, and maybe even the employee will over deliver. So that's another thing. And I think I'm personally myself, I'm trying to tell others that I trust them and they can do the task that I'm giving to them, and they need to feel responsibility for that task. And if they do, then they try to do it in the best way. Maybe try to over deliver it, try to do something else to make it even better. And so that works pretty well.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. How have you learned management, Alex? Like what's sort of been the resources or the people you've listened to or the likes?
Well, I read from 30 to 50 books every year, and most of them about management, personal growth, and time management. And most of the books, of course, in Russian, because I can read them faster. And we have a lot of good writers. One of the best books I read recently was 45 Tattoos of the Manager. It's a Russian bestseller and pretty good book. The guy was nominated as a best top manager of the year in Russia. Also, we have a book club in our company. Every week we read some books that's pretty valuable for us. And like, for example, now we're reading StoryBrand from Donald Miller.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting book, and it's useful for all of us to know. And also I read a lot of successful stories. Recent books I read, it was A Clockwork, Mike Michalowicz, How Google Works, Ideal Executive by Isaac Aziz. And of course, I watched some business podcasts like yours, for example. Really like it, and I even rewatched recently the course, the training we had in order with you. That was pretty useful. And yeah, I live pretty close to the office. It's about 1 kilometer one way. So I have lunch at home every day because my wife cooks for me. And so in the morning I go for a walk from my house to the office. So I listen some podcasts, and I go back to lunch to have lunch with my wife, and then I go back to the office. So I have 4 kilometers walk every day. So all this time I try to listen and learn something new that can be useful.
Yeah. Right, Alex. That was a lot of good information. I think we're good for now. Before we leave, if people are eager to talk to you or get hold of you for any reason, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, most of the time I work on Skype because we use it in our company. But I think people can find me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you very much for joining, Alex.
Thank you, Matt.
And to the audience, you will hopefully be listening to us again next week. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Please leave a review. It means the world to us. You can also learn more about management at madsingers.com.